If I'm beaten and raped in the state of Texas, I have to give birth to the baby of my rapist. If I am raped by my father, brother, or uncle and get pregnant in the state of Texas, I have to give birth to the baby of my family abuser. This new law is so draconian that I can be prosecuted for having an abortion, and so can my doctors, friends, and family who advise me, or even the Uber driver who simply drives me to the clinic. This is madness. The same people who have been protesting and screaming, "My body, my choice," when it comes to the COVID vaccine, are now saying I don't have any control over my own body. Texas Republicans won't require a 12-year-old girl to wear a mask in school that may save her life and the lives of other children, but they will force her to keep a baby regardless of how she got pregnant, including rape and incest. I am a woman, and I have a constitutional right to make decisions for my own body. I am a woman, and I have a human right to refuse to give birth to my rapist's baby. I am a woman. This is my body. I am a woman. This is the United States of America. I am a woman. You do not own or control my mind or my body.
My body is my choice.
Shame on the men and women who passed this law, and shame on anyone who sits in silence while women suffer and die because of it.
It's Jeff. Hope everybody had a good day. Really nice out here today. I'm sure we'll pay for it soon. The last 3-4 days here it's been really sunny and nice out, but it's nice. Smokey, well, she's still a little bit tired. I guess they said it's going to take 10 to 14 days for her to recover from, the shots and everything that she got, and so it's taking the time. She's been quiet, which is kind of a relief for me because I haven't had to chase her all through the house to get her from coming down off of things. Jeez. I used to have a plant behind me. Now I had to move it into another room because she's been chewing too much on it and not eating her regular food. So I took it down and I moved it out of the way so she can't get to it. For now, I guess that's probably where it's going to have to stay until she's, decided not to do that anymore. I got 2 plants in the kitchen or the stove that I'm afraid she'll be able to jump up on and get to, but she hasn't done that yet, at least as far as I know she hasn't, but anyway. So, today, of course, with all the complaining going on, about the anti-abortion movement and stuff like that, I thought maybe it would be interesting to kind of approach this thing from a historical point of view as to when and why this anti-abortion faction in the GOP began, and what really sparked it all. So I don't know how many of you out there are really aware of it or anything like that, but I thought just for the sake of this episode here of Ordinary Talk that we could, kind of hear a little bit of it. I mean, and there's a thing here from Columbian College of Arts and Sciences, George Washington University has a article here for History News Network, and This was written last year, October the 24th, and it's written by Don Levy, entitled "How the Republicans Became the Anti-Abortion Party and What It Means for the GOP for Today," which is last year. Okay, but I picked this mostly because of the historical information here, so maybe this might be of interest to some of you out there as I read this. So oh yeah, and it also says that Don Levy is a retired community college history instructor. Okay, so in the mid-1970s, the religious right became heavily involved in electoral politics and a driving force within the Republican Party. By the end of the decade, abortion had emerged as the dominant issue in the religious right's quest for power and influence. How did this happen, and what does it mean for American politics and the Republican Party? In January of 1973, the Supreme Court ruled in Roe v. Wade that under the 14th Amendment, a, quote, right to privacy, unquote, exists, giving pregnant women a choice of whether to have an abortion. As with other constitutional rights, this is not absolute. Under the ruling, in the first trimester, the abortion choice is absolute. In the second trimester, the state can impose reasonable regulations. In the third trimester, abortion may be prohibited except when necessary to save a life. Despite this landmark decision, immediate response from the religious right was muted. A typical reaction from the evangelical movement came from W.A. Criswell, former president of the Southern Baptist Convention and pastor of the First Baptist Church of Dallas, who in 1973 said, quote, "I have always felt that it was only after a child was born and had a life separate from its mother that it became an individual person," unquote. The Southern Baptist Convention in 1974 reaffirmed its long-held view that abortion should be legal in cases of rape, incest, severe fetal deformity, or strong evidence of the likelihood of emotional, mental, or physical damage to the mother. In 1973, the chief issue concerning the religious right was tax exemption for private schools. In Green versus Connolly in 1971, the Supreme Court ruled that under 501c3 of the Internal Revenue Service Code, racially discriminatory private schools are not entitled to federal tax exemption. That became the overriding issue for the religious right in the 1970s, as the Justice Department investigated private schools, including Bob Jones University, for racial discrimination. By 1976, the anti-abortion movement was not yet strong to influence the GOP platform, which contained a statement acknowledging that abortion is a, quote, difficult and controversial, unquote, issue about which Republicans had differing views. There was one candidate in 1976 who was prescient and began to stake out an anti-abortion position. That was Ronald Reagan. By 1980, a sea change had taken with respect to the thinking of religious right leaders. A chief figure promoting this change that would capture the Republican Party was Paul Weyrich, a conservative political activist. Weyrich was different from many other conservative activists in that he believed the key to success would be combining old conservative issues such as taxation with religious moralism. Weyrich tried out various issues such as school prayer and especially the issue of tax exemption for private religious schools. But nothing worked on a grand scale. Then came the 1978 midterm elections, in which anti-abortionists campaigned for winning Senate candidates in Minnesota and Iowa. The following year, Jerry Falwell founded the Moral Majority to support candidates for public office. Weyrich and Falwell realized that the tax exemption issue based on racial discrimination had limited value. But opposing abortion was a moral issue cutting across racial and religious lines. That was their thinking on the eve of the 1980 elections. When Ronald Reagan emerged as the putative nominee in the primaries, he won the endorsement of the religious right with a goal of outlawing abortion. The appeal of Reagan was odd, because he was once reputed to be a Hollywood womanizer who never attended church, and had signed the country's most liberal abortion law as governor. In 1967, Governor Reagan signed a bill giving any doctor the power to approve an abortion for mental health reasons of the mother. 9 years later, Reagan claimed that he was unaware of that part of the law, but that is disingenuous, in that Reagan spoke of his misgivings on the day he signed the law. The number of abortions skyrocketed in California. However, Jerry Falwell, among others, believed in Reagan's sincerity that he was now one of them. The GOP platform of 1980 again admitted that Republicans differed on the abortion issue, but this time declared support for a constitutional anti-abortion amendment and called for an end of taxpayers' money used for abortion services. Reagan never became a churchgoer, but did affirm his anti-abortion views in a 1983 essay titled, quote, "Abortion and the Conscience of the Nation," unquote. His essay opposed abortion on demand and urges Americans to value the life of the quote-unquote unborn. The Republican Party would from then on be an anti-abortion party in its national platforms and legislative agenda, but the results have been mixed. Reagan's first Supreme Court appointee was Sandra Day O'Connor, who saved Roe v. Wade. In Planned Parenthood versus Casey in 1992, Justice O'Connor wrote that an abortion is a constitutional right that can only be restricted if a restriction does not place an, quote, undue burden, unquote, on a woman. The case was about a restrictive abortion law in Pennsylvania that required spousal notification prior to an abortion. That was struck down as an undue burden because some husbands are abusive. Other provisions, such as parental consent and a 24-hour waiting period, remained intact. By the end of Reagan's presidency, Republican Party leadership had become beholden to the anti-abortion movement. All GOP presidential nominees from George H.W. Bush to Donald Trump declared their anti-abortion position and their desire that Roe v. Wade be overturned. Some of the nominees, such as George H.W. Bush and Mitt Romney, had prior moderate views on abortion. Bush had previously supported Planned Parenthood, but became staunchly anti-abortion when seeking the nomination. What have the anti-abortionists done to the Republican Party? They have turned the party rightward on a host of other issues. The religious right has also been extremely conservative on multiple issues, including taxation, tax exemptions for religious institutions, immigration, health care, and same-sex marriage. To keep the anti-abortionists satisfied, Republicans have had to follow suit on those issues. The party formerly had liberals and moderates. Now, the liberals are extinct, and the moderates are dwindling. But so long as the primary system is the method of choosing the nominees, the Republicans appear stuck in the status quo. In the Republican presidential primaries of 2016, 14.8% of the eligible voters cast ballots. That allows the base, largely composed of anti-abortionists, to choose the nominee. Is this situation a benefit or hindrance to the Republican Party? A CBS News New York Times poll taken shortly before the November election in 1980 indicated that Americans believed inflation was the worst problem facing the nation, not abortion or any social issue. The Republicans have been compelled to choose anti-abortion nominees, although that has never been the most important issue for most Americans. If other issues such as inflation are salient, the party can win. Yet there is a problem. Republicans have lost the popular vote in 7 out of the last 8 presidential elections, only to be saved twice by the Electoral College. Furthermore, the conservative uniformity of the Republicans, largely brought about by the power of anti-abortionists, makes expanding their base difficult. Finally, the Texas abortion law and a possible gutting, if not outright overturning, of Roe v. Wade is the coming year creates a big target for the Democrats to use in the 2022 midterm elections and perhaps 2024. Polls have long indicated that about 80% of the American people want abortion to be legal in some form. The anti-abortionist capture of the Republican Party may do serious damage to the party in the near future. So yeah, that gives you sort of a peek into the past here. Basically, I think what it is they found that appealing to these religious right voters, I guess, by taking up this anti-abortion thing, was enough to get people motivated in the GOP to vote. Okay. And they wanted their president to run on, or the candidate to be president to run on that, because they figured that was going to get them the votes they needed to beat, whoever candidate. Of course, at the time, Jimmy Carter, when he was running against Reagan, his approval numbers were down, okay, and over international issues, and so, Reagan easily won that election, okay. So I don't think it was really needed at that time for them to go around doing what they did to get, like, anti-abortion rhetoric. But I think, in his second term, I guess the Republican Party really wanted to pick up that. That's kind of a issue there for elections that were coming down the road. And the thing of it is, it's like it said here, the problem that people were mostly worried about in this time was inflation, just like today. Inflation, I mean, it seems like we're going right back to the 1980s, where we're talking about abortion, and the issue that's on everybody's mind is inflation, because you look, every time you watch the news on television, when they do polls, it always leans more to economic problems that people are facing, that they want solved, not these social issues that Republicans keep bringing to the table, which only end up dividing the country, okay? And that's why they do this. That's why they do this. That's why they bring up this, this anti-abortion stuff. I mean, it's not really going to matter at the end of the day what the Supreme Court decides, okay? Because I feel these states are still going to do what they want, just like they did now before there was even a discussion. They're already doing what they want, okay? And they're just daring any lawyer to try to challenge it in court, because they're going to take it right up to the Supreme Court again, and we're going to be right back here, where we are. So I don't think it's really going to matter whether the Supreme Court rules in favor or rules against it. The problem remains, and the issue that people keep electing these radical governors on the right wing into office only means you're going to have problems down the road that are going to distract this country from the problems that really need to be looked at and solved. Okay, and that's what they hope for. That's what people like, Ron DeSantis and Greg Abbott, that's the kind of shit they hope for, is that people won't be focused on what's really ailing this country, and instead they want them to look at, these people here having abortions, and the women should be arrested and charged with murder and stuff. The more right wing their rhetoric is, the more the people cheer for it in their party, and that's what they want. That's what they need, because that's how Trump won his presidency, was because he appealed to those folks in the Republican Party that were really out there, ignorant, whatever you want to call it, whatever word and so, that's how he got his support from them. Plus the Democrats were split. The party was split. The DNC was split, going into that election. And that was the perfect storm for a Republican win. Unfortunately, that meant the Republican being Donald Trump. But yes, so here we are again today, and they're using anti-abortion rhetoric and scaring the bejesus out of the nation that, you know, we're going to get our way and that's it. And, you know, the Democrats are blowing their heads up, you know, because they're so friggin' pissed that we got to go back and discuss this shit all over again, which really isn't the first time. I mean, we've had this conversation many times after 73. It's come up periodically, and the debate has never been easy. It's always been emotion filled, and, you know, argumentative, and I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's always been a hot potato in this country, and that's like one of the hottest potatoes out there for the Republicans to throw at us when we get closer and closer to election time. They keep wanting to lean into that all the time. You know, critical race theory wasn't a hot potato enough. Okay, so that's been sort of tabled right now. We don't hear much about that anymore. Book banning is one of their other ones. It's a little more influential. Same-sex marriage is another, but I don't think they're going to go that route yet, unless this abortion thing falls apart in the Supreme Court for them. Then that's going to be their next target. You know, that they're going to go after people that get married. And like somebody said, if they win there, then the next thing is going to be, you know, who can get married. And you know, the rules in marriage. You know what I'm saying? Because you still got Republicans in the party that think that, you know, a man can rape his wife because they're married. You know, there's people out there that think that, you know, and that goes all the way back to the 17th century. Some jackass from back then who made an argument that a man can rape his wife because they're married and she has to submit. You know, I can't remember who the clown was that said it, but I remember somebody saying that once in an interview, and it was on TV, and they brought up this fucker's name that was back then, who was sitting here, you know, and it goes all the way back to those days. Like, you know, why would somebody want to reach so far into the past where people were burning witches at the stake, or where there was slavery? Why would they want to reach into the past to pull that as a fucking basis for their reasoning? You know, if you're thinking along those lines, then you belong in the past, not in today, because we overcame a lot of that stuff, you know, as we wised up to it. And yet we still have people in our country today who feel like we need to go back to those days instead. Those kind of people are fanatical, okay, and you can't really stomp them out like a bug. Okay, they're always going to come out of the woodwork somewhere, and when they come out and the press gives them attention, people really need to keep in mind where this person's getting his information and what he's talking about. And, you know, when he's sitting there talking about something like, you know, women having to be beholden to a man, or a husband rather, and stuff like that, first you got to flip back in history books and find out where the jackass was that started that friggin' belief, and then go from there and say, well, what was going on at the time when he said that? And you're going to be like, Jesus, you know. You know, it's like picking out something Hitler said, okay, and then saying, oh, well, this is the reason why we need to do this today because Hitler said it back then. You know, it's like, well, you picked the worst figure from the past, living in a time where people were living like animals, and you're going to decide that is the time that's when you want to drag, you know, an ideal from that in those days and bring that into the 21st century. You're out of your friggin' mind. You know, come on, you know, 300-400 years ago, Christ, this country didn't look anything like it does today. You know, and a lot of things that flew back then certainly would be considered criminal today. So why the hell would anybody want to listen to somebody talking like that? And, you know, like I said, well, like this article here said, there wasn't a whole lot said about Roe versus Wade back then because a lot of Republicans weren't so anti-abortion back then. Okay, the only ones that were the extreme religious right. They were the ones that were anti-abortion, okay? But the Republican Party as a whole thought a lot like the Democrats do, that, you know, women should have their rights and stuff like that to it, okay? And I guess for them that wasn't striking enough, that they figured that if they're going to motivate their party, their base, to get out and vote, they got to anger them, which means they have to pick up that anti-abortion rhetoric and throw it in their face and say, look, this is what Democrats support, and you know they're devils, and they're this and they're that, and you know what I'm saying, and they're and really smear the left wing. And that's kind of where the crack began, where it started to split our parties up down through the decades after that, okay? And now that job has been performed so well by the right wing, thanks to talk radio, TV, Fox News, the internet, and the right wing's bullshit on there, okay? Because of those things, because they've influenced Americans in so many ways that they can get their message out, they've really done a job on Americans today that they don't know whether to shit or get off the pot. Okay, that's the thing. They really don't know. A lot of people today, they pick and choose what they want to believe and hear. Okay, some guy here not long ago started to want to test that theory about how stupid people can be, and he started going around telling people that birds weren't real, that instead they flew around and they were like robots that watched everybody on the ground, okay? And when they landed on power lines, they were actually recharging themselves, their batteries, so they can continue to fly around and do this. That's some guy, you know, this is a guy who was trying to show us how stupid we are. He started this thing, and he was out there with people that he had got together to pretend that they were supporting him, and he used to do these fake rallies and stuff, and he'd scream on a bullhorn, birds are fake, you know. And finally he come out and he exposed what he was doing, okay? And he was telling people how frightening it was, just how many people were joining up with this thing, and started repeating what he was saying to other people, trying to sucker them in onto the lie. Okay, so here this guy created a movement which turned out to be a big joke, you know. And so many people fell for his bullshit, and it goes to show you how gullible so many people are in this country. That's why things like QAnon can exist, okay? And I think it was because of QAnon he felt motivated to do something to show us how easy it is to get so many people. It's like, goes back to the thing that I was saying about anything that I say, 100 people will agree to. Statistically, there will be 100 people that will believe anything that I say. Okay, I can just randomly say something and I know I'll get 100 people that'll agree with that, no matter how stupid it sounds. Okay, and that's all you really need to start a movement. You get 100 people and then they start going around talking to other people about what I said. Okay, and then before you know it, they drag in more hordes into the friggin' fold. You know, I mean, at some point it's going to be harder and harder to get more people to join the fold, but by the time it's done, you're going to have quite a few people there that's going to be like cheering and agreeing to everything you say. So, you know, that really illustrates, you know, just how we are as people. I'm not going to say as Americans, because I think this happens across the globe. It doesn't matter if you're an American or a German or a Russian or whatever. I think people are people no matter where you go, okay? And there's always going to be folks that are going to fall for lies. And that's how we are. Some of us don't have the skills to filter out bullshit. We don't recognize it when we hear some of us, okay? You know, and even some of the smarter people who can you know, spot bullshit when they hear it, sometimes even they fall for the scams, and they get in the emails and stuff like that, you know, and they get themselves in trouble. Okay, so at some point in our lives, we're all going to be suckers for something that's said or brought to us, and we're going to believe it. Okay, but you know, the less experienced, the less intelligent you are, the more chances that person has that trips up and falls into one of these traps, okay? And I think that's, you know, sort of another part of the point that the guy was trying to make here about that. Okay, let's go to a commercial break. We'll be right back.
Dear CEO, what's it gonna take for you to do something? Yeah, do you even care?
Climate change affects all of us.
This is your chance to do something good.
Superman movie is brought to you by Canon, the world's leading camera manufacturer.
Quick, it's happy!
Canavision 8 camcorders.
Hey, I thought you were Superman, huh?
Hey, I am!
If it moves, shoot it with a cannon.
Trash bags! Trash bags! Trash bags! Trash bags! I want trash bags! I want them! I want them! I want them!
It doesn't matter what comes, fresh goes better in life. With Mentos fresh and full of life. Nothing gets to you, staying fresh, staying cool. With Mentos fresh and full of life. Fresh goes better, Mentos fresh goes. Fresh goes better with Mentos fresh and full of life.
Mentos, the fresh maker.
Be a part of the entertainment value of a lifetime.
I loved it.
It was the best performance I've seen in a lifetime.
I loved the show. I liked it very much. He's a very entertaining man. It's well worth the money.
Now appearing in Charlottetown, coming to Halifax November 6th to the 18th, and St. John November 20th through the 26th.
Okay, welcome back. To verify what I was telling you in the previous segment here about the bird thing there, you can go to a website that's still up. Just type in birdsaren'treal.com, and because I don't know why it's still up, but it's still there. And the guy that started the movement, he's at the top of the page. I think he was involved in something else, but I can't remember what it was. But like I said, he tried to make this look as legitimate as he could, to really make people believe that this was a real movement, okay? But it was all designed to expose the idiocy of people, and how you know, how people can fall for this stuff. And there's a couple of videos here that are on this page here, and I believe there's a YouTube thing here. Let me go back. Let me see. Yes, on YouTube. Let me see. There's a link here to dismiss. Okay. Oh, cool! We got that movie there. Okay, now I'm gonna go back into the history. Yeah, there's a 60 minutes program here. And the title of it is Birds Aren't Real, the conspiracy theory that satirizes conspiracy theories. And it was uploaded this year, May 3rd. And it's 13 minutes long, but I think it's a good thing to watch, because it kind of he explains in detail more, I think, why he did what he did, and you know, it gives you something to think about, you know. So yeah, look that up on YouTube, and if you can't find it, just ask me for the link here, because I got it on my computer. It's saved in the computer here, so I'll send you the link. But it's pretty interesting, though, when you think about it, because from a societal standpoint, when you think about, you know, we like to think of ourselves as having evolved, you know, beyond being fooled in this way, but apparently, even as we evolve, we find better ways to fool each other. So there's this kind of a tug-of-war of trying to be above being fooled, but as time goes on, you know, our ability to fool each other evolves along with our intelligence. We get smarter at doing it, and we keep finding new ways to fool people. Just like, you know, until the internet came around, a lot of people wouldn't lose their identity as bad. But now, I mean, it happens a lot. Plus, you get your credit cards all hacked and everything. You know, so it's a constant battle between our ignorance and our intelligence, you know, because people are always looking to try to make a buck by fooling somebody. And I don't think that's ever going to change, because, you know, everybody's different, and people will do whatever it takes to get ahead in life. You know, for money. I mean, obviously, it's always going to be for money. I mean, if money wasn't involved, half the crimes that happen in this world would not happen at all. Okay, but money is really the driving force for many crimes. Okay, the other driving force is personal pleasures, you know, sexual gratification or what have you. But those basic things, you know, is what's always going to be behind many crimes that you investigate. You know, Of course, there's other motivations too, you know, anger and shit like that. But I think the bigger ones are kind of that deal with people trying to make money by any way they can. So that was that. This other article here that I found is from the New Republic, which was kind of an interesting opinion here, I guess, if you want to call it. This was written last week, published last week. It's entitled, "Why the End of Roe Isn't Likely to Energize the Democrats," by Natalie Schuer. To suggest that the collapse of Roe could effectively inspire the sort of movement building for the broader left that it has for the right is to misunderstand at once the class politics of abortion and the role it's played within both parties. As much as we might wish otherwise, the most plausible impact the end of Roe v. Wade will have on electoral politics is little to none at all. The basic story of how abortion became a cause célèbre for the Republican Party goes like this. In the post-war United States, when the coalitions that made up each major party looked very different from today's, abortion was controversial but not an issue that split opinion along partisan lines. Even Ronald Reagan, whose political star rose after he lent his Hollywood charm to propaganda for the anti-Medicare campaign, signed a bill loosening abortion restrictions as governor of California in 1967. In 1970, Republican New York Governor Nelson Rockefeller signed into law the country's most liberal abortion law. In 1972, pro-choice feminists like Jill Ruckelshaus attended the Republican National Convention as delegates. Early organized blowback to the 73 Roe decision was limited mostly to working-class Roman Catholics who tended to vote for Democrats. Within days of the ruling, my Irish grandparents dragged my 11-year-old mother to an anti-Roe protest in Chicago, where she was given a bracelet emblazoned with the date January 22nd, 1973, and told to wear it until Roe was overturned. To her credit, she has not. Meanwhile, civil rights advances and desegregation efforts in the 1960s and 70s drove a racist backlash among white Southerners who began exiting the Democrat Party for the GOP and tapping into a defensive identity politics centered on Christianity rather than on explicit white supremacy. At around the same time, the booming post-war manufacturing sector began to grow sluggish, leaving an opening for capital to launch a counterattack on labor and blunt its decades of ascendancy, a historical and political process known as neoliberalism. The high water mark for union membership came in '79, not long after Roe v. Wade. The business factions of the Republican Party grew stronger, and the labor factions of the Democratic Party grew weaker, until finally, amid significant cultural and electoral upheaval, and at the start of a still ongoing top-down siege on the poor and working class, Ronald Reagan's 1980 presidential campaign managed to cobble together the coalition that's defined American politics ever since, an ultra-rich ruling class exclusively committed to serving the interests of capital and the so-called religious right, which ably racks up votes for the former by drumming up angst about race, gender, and morality, outrage over abortion, and not so subtly over the mouthy women's livers who seem to love it so much, soon proved to be a particularly powerful flag to plant. With this, with his reconstituted Republican base, Reagan won 2 eye-popping landslide elections for president in a row. Realizing the centrality of the pro-life movement to his political brand in 1985, he became the first sitting president to address the March for Life. For its part, the swath of the GOP preoccupied with business interests got plenty of juice for the squeeze. Abortion and other ostensibly moral issues continued to turn out voters for the Republican Party. which morphed into an extraordinarily effective wish fulfillment vehicle for the country's plutocrats. In the 1980s and 1990s, the right managed to slash taxes, decimate unions, liquidate pensions, corporatize healthcare, capture regulatory agencies, and more. Meanwhile, the pro-life movement operated as a sort of get-out-the-vote operation, delivering intermittent strikes against Roe, such as 1992's Planned Parenthood versus Casey, which opened the door to all manner of restrictions so long as they didn't constitute an quote-unquote undue burden on choice. Since the 1980s, pro-life activists have also targeted abortion clinics and providers, bombing and assassinating them, in extreme cases barraging them unnecessarily with legal hoops to jump through, coercing providers into the provision of medically unneeded ultrasounds and messaging, and lobbying for parental notification requirements, mandatory wait times, and so on. Supporters of abortion rights have, of course, offered responses of their own. But if pro-choice activists have always been clear-eyed about the need to defend reproductive choice against attacks from the right, their analysis of the stakes hasn't always been right. Nothing in recent years better illustrates erroneous mainstream interpretations of Roe than the ubiquity of cloak and bonnet costumes at pro-choice demonstrations. The outfits invoke the classic novel and TV adaptation of The Handmaid's Tale, which imagines a dystopia that relegates women to incubator status. Suffice it to say that the overwhelming white professional class women who don these costumes don't inhabit a country on the verge of becoming a theocracy or even a patriarchy, but an oligarchy, the harms of which they'll be relatively spared from. That's the too seldom articulated truth that puts bitter U.S. abortion battles into context. Wealthy and powerful women will always be able to get one. So, they think the Democrats really aren't going to be able to do much of anything about that. That could be true. I don't think it's going to be, if that happens, it'll be for, much of what was laid out here for that. I think what it'll be based on is just apathy. People just not wanting to give a shit, because you always have that element in every issue that comes up. It doesn't have to be abortion; it can be anything. You always got that element in the Democratic Party when there's something that the Republicans want, and people say they shouldn't have because it's going to do this A, B, C, and D bad things to this country. And you're always going to have a faction of the Democrats who are just going to sit down and let it go. And in this situation with abortion, you're going to have some people from, people older than I am or my age, who will come out and fight against this overturning of Roe. You'll have a lot of young people coming out doing this. But what I think is that, a lot of young people today don't really know what the world is going to look like if Roe is overturned, because even though their parents might have experienced life before it happened, people, memories of how things went, if they don't have some kind of a personal experience of something that went on then, I don't think they're really going to be as motivated to want to protect something that they always thought was there. And it's like somebody saying, "Oh, we're going to ban automobiles from the road," okay? And people just, they don't think much about it, okay? They just kind of say, well, what was life like without automobiles? Well, then nobody knows, because nobody remembers, okay? They don't know how long it took to get anything done when they hadn't had no vehicles out there to do anything. It's going to be something like that, where people aren't going to really know what it was like before they had the right to you know, to have abortions and things. But if it ever gets reversed, then a whole generation of people, a whole new generation of people are going to be experiencing things that are horrible and they never thought would happen. Okay? Then they'll have personal experience with life without Roe versus Wade. Okay? And then that is what will motivate them to come back and undo this. Okay? And it goes back to what I said before about how people have to learn the hard way. Because it's one thing, you know, to sit down and read something of history, okay? You get the data fed into your brain, okay? But what's missing in that data? The experience, the flavor of the times, okay? You can't convey that through words or pictures or something. You know, you just can't. You have to live those days in order to understand them. And maybe that's why a lot of us make the mistake of repeating history all the time, is because when we look back at history, we look at it without the eyes or the feeling of emotion in it, where we remember how horrible things were or how good things were. Okay, it doesn't always have to be a bad thing. You know, I could tell you about, you know, when I went to Disneyland, what we did there and stuff and how I felt, but you know, you're not really ever going to really understand how it felt unless you go there yourself and experience what it's like to be there. You know, you can't really explain it. Like, you can't explain to somebody who's never gone to school what the first day of school is like, okay? You know, there's always that, you know, element in history that's going to get lost because it belongs to the moment, it belongs to the individual of that time, okay? And, you know, it's sad that, you know, people have such short lives. And we can't really convey enough of our experiences. I mean, people have tried many different ways over the decades to try to bring about as much insight, okay, through TV shows and movies and stuff like that, to try to really get people into those years and make them feel something, okay, about what it was like, how the experience was, how scary it was, or how great it was. You know, really bring people into it as best as they can. And I think, you know, Hollywood kind of serves that purpose in a good way, okay, when they're not screwing around doing all this other shit, okay, when they actually do something historical driven, you know, a documentary kind of film, a lot of times they can really get you into the thing, you know. And, you know, there's, I guess, you know, the different mediums you have out there will determine how effective it can be to convey stuff. You got the book medium, you got the movie medium, and now you have the internet medium. You know, so we try so hard, you know, as historians will, to make us understand, you know. I mean, I watch, you know, historical things on TV all the time, okay? And, you know, a lot of them are very, very well descriptive. They give you a lot of details. Some of them fail at giving you the actual flavor of the time of what was going on then, you know, making you feel like how desperate things were. Some of them, because they're so brief, they don't really convey that to you. So it's sort of like a hit and miss kind of thing, you know. It's just facts being spit at you, basically, with pictures. But it's really good when they can actually do, like, you know, like the movie Iwo Jima, okay? They had, I think it was Clint Eastwood, had made the movie from two sides about how the Americans experienced Iwo Jima and then how the Japanese experienced Iwo Jima, which I thought was really a good take on that moment in that battle, that particular time, that we got to see that from both sides, okay? We saw a lot of things. There was a lot of messaging there that was delivered to us, and a lot of experience, I think, was brought to us too about that whole thing, and you couldn't get a much better explanation of the time and what was going on than through that film, you know? So I think that movie, or movies I should say, about the same days, you know, they had, what was it, letters from Iwo Jima, and then there was Iwo Jima or something like that. it was really a good take on that point in history. And we need to do more stuff like that, I think. And I think if they could ever do something about this, about making a movie about how it was before Roe v. Wade, you know, and show some of the horror stories that went on back then, you know, it might make a difference in the way people perceive it now. It might change heads. It might change my, you know, and make people think, you know, I was wrong to oppose it. Because I've forgotten what it was like back then. You know, how they would deliberately try to stop you from doing something. I mean, there was people who died because they didn't get an abortion, you know, and they lost the baby too. They died, the baby, the fetus died or whatever. You know, that's how bad things were, you know, in those days, was because they were so anti-abortion back then that some places would rather see the person die rather than have one, you know. So I think we need to have more of an impact about that issue in American society than what has really been given to us over the years. I can't think of anything Hollywood-wise that's been made about that. I mean, maybe some of you out there might remember a movie or two or something like that that centered around the issue of Roe versus Wade, but I haven't seen it. Okay, I don't know if it was a made-for-TV movie, or if it was actually in the theaters. I don't know, but maybe some of you out there might know a movie that focused on what things were like before Roe versus Wade, you know, 1973. So, but I think they need to do more stuff like that now, because we see now how easy it is to get people to think that it's okay to overturn this thing. That's dangerous. So that means our messaging about that hasn't been very clear, or hasn't been reinforced enough by the Democrats to, you know, cement this in here as a must that we have to have. Okay. So I think the Republicans, you know, have seized on something that we failed at doing, and that's continuing to protect that right, to continue to educate the upcoming generations about the importance of certain things that, you know, we live with, and how, you know, it's still an issue today that's going to come up in elections because it's a hot potato, like I said. But the more people are aware of what that hot potato is all about, the less chance the Republicans will have in order to succeed at winning seats using it. And before you know it, they'll stop using it. You know, they'll change it to something else. So I think that's what we need to do here, is to really start pounding into society's head through a good medium here, by digging into the past, finding some stories of some shit that went on pre-1973, where people who could have had an easier time of it if they were allowed to have an abortion, or would have saved a life or two if they would have had an abortion. You know what I'm saying? Let's put these things out there, you know, just like we did with you know, a lot of other incidents in the past, you know, where they made movies out of them. School shootings and stuff like that. I mean, let's get on the ball with that, because I think, you know, we really, the society really needs to be reminded of it. So anyway, that's all I got to say for today. So I hope everybody has a great rest of the week. Take care to learn what's going on in your local areas about COVID-19. It's still counting up numbers here in Maine, so we're still having a problem with it here. I think a lot of people around here still haven't got the message yet, so they're still not wearing masks. So I think the problem is not going to stop anytime soon. Anyway, just keep up to date on that, and be smart. You know, be vigilant, and ask questions when you don't understand something. Subscribe and comment. I'd like to hear from people out there. And please take care of yourself and enjoy the rest of your week. So take care.
Thank you.